Creative Katie, Karen Burchill here. Welcome to my channel and Index Card a Day Week 2. Here is a sneak peek of the 4 index card that I did this week. So let's get started. Grab a cup of coffee, sit down and relax. Here's index card number 1. I'm off prompt but inspired by nature. So remember my gel printing session? I love this print. It's grungy and it's just perfect as it is. I don't need to add anything. It's soft. It has a little bit of white. So I grab these magnolia blossoms and I stenciled onto tissue paper using white modeling paste. And now I'm just ripping off the extra tissue. This way, I can do the modeling paste in a stash building session and then have it at the ready where I can audition it on my page without fear of, making a mess or getting it in the wrong place. And I can rip and adjust as I need for the size that I'm working on. So I'm just playing with where I want it. Now, because this is modeling paste is put onto tissue paper. Wherever the tissue paper is, when I put lots of the matte medium on, the fluid matte medium, that part goes translucent and you see the background. And as you can see, that's peeking through. So the tissue paper disappears, use lots of matte medium, fluid matte medium, and it leaves the wonderful texture and pattern. One of the other ICADs that I do this week, I use the same techniques. You'll see another application of that. But isn't that absolutely wonderful? Now that white just is perfect. I don't need to colorize it. It goes so well with the background. And that's the joy of building your stash out of the moment. Have those stash builder sessions. And I'll put a link to my stash builder playlist. Lots of good ideas for ways of building your stash. I grabbed a sentiment and auditioned a few of them. And you know what? I am simply blessed because now I live in a place where I can grow magnolias. And I have one that's actually a burgundy colored one. So again, I'm auditioning, do I want that colored butterfly? And I'm thinking, I'm going to keep it very much the same. And I pick a black and white butterfly. I don't want to introduce any more color here. Simple is sometimes best. So yeah, once your stash is there, I have the sentiments, I had the modeling paste on tissue paper, I had the gel printed background all ready to go. This is a matter of figuring out what I want, getting inspired, and taking elements that I already have in my stash and combining them, which makes for a fairly quick, easy, fun, creative time. So if you're short on time, think about doing the stash builders. So my secure gel, when you get it, it has a little plastic on the end. You have to take that off. Secure glaze pen. And I'm just outlining this with black. And I'm adding black because there is that black in the butterfly and in the sentiment. And this is just very softly framing it. And there we have it. Index card number 1 done. Here's a sneak peek of number 2. And I'm using that same technique with the modeling paste on tissue paper. So again, I love this background created with the gel print. It had jungle vines in it. And I'll put a link to the stencils that are used in the gel print as well. And this one I used the stencil Petal Burst. And I put this design motif on and I used clear modeling paste from the Crafter's Workshop, which I colorized Prussian blue. And that looks lovely. I reach into my stash, I find this butterfly that I had colored 2 years ago that matches the background. So I'm pulling out all those elements and thinking, yes, this is going to work together. Now let's play with the composition. Which way do I want it to go? How much of the butterfly? There's the purple at the top, which I love. That was on the Happy Planner page, and it just didn't get covered up with the gel print. It's kind of a cleanup print. So here I'm taking various amounts of this modeling paste on tissue paper, and I'm playing with the orientation. And then I can just glue them down with the fluid matte medium, and I don't have to wait for the modeling paste to dry. Loving that. I wanted to cover up the 2019 date at the top. So I've added texture design by using the tissue paper, the modeling paste on the tissue paper. I do add another one of those petal burst motifs. And now I'm gluing down the butterfly. And this is a stamp, and I will put a link to that stamp in the description box below. It is, as you can see, it's a large size butterfly, and I absolutely love it. I believe it's Kaisercraft brand, but it'll be in the description box. Grab my box of sentiments, all my little cut up ones, find one that fits the theme, fits the space of the page. Remember, my goal with the index card today is to use things that are in my stash, not printing out more sentiments as much as possible, not stamping out more images, but using what I have, challenging myself that way. The dots on the butterfly got a little bit muted, so I'm just reapplying and to make them more bright white. And I'm using my fine line bottle, and that has a mixture of water and my Liquitex Basics white acrylic paint. And I just mix it till it gets the right consistency so it comes out easily. I like the dots on the butterfly. They read with the dot in that Petal Burst modeling paste pattern. And that's how you build cohesion in a page, little elements that are the same. I try this across the top. To bring that element there. I end up saying, no, I don't like it. So I grab a baby wipe and I remove it. It's acrylic paint, so you have some time. But that works only if your background is completely dry, and which is another benefit of doing your backgrounds, gel print backgrounds, or whatever kind of backgrounds ahead of time. Now I'm just shading around the outside to frame the page. Using the floating acrylic technique, as you've seen me doing many, many, many times. But you can use a charcoal pencil, you could use a Stabilo oil pencil, watercolor pencil to get a similar effect. You can also edge it with black acrylic paint on a makeup sponge. You've seen me doing that as well. Grabbing the Sakura glaze pen again and just going around. And that's index card number 2. Here's index card number 3. I grab this and I decide I don't like the background. So the prompt for this one is kite, and I'm actually on prompt this time. I don't like the background. I like the blues and pinks. And since this has acrylic, I'm deciding to add some blue paint, some teal paint to the background, wet and thick, and I'm going to put a stencil on top and remove paint through the stencil. So where I remove it, that background, the pinks and the blues that were there, little parts of that are going to show. So I grab a baby wipe, and my baby wipe was a little bit on the dry side. I didn't close the container. So you can see how the pink is showing through, and I love that. But I wasn't getting enough pattern on here. So I give it a dry, and then I grab some Prussian blue and some white gesso, and with a makeup sponge, I'm just pushing that through the same stencil to get more patterning. And this, when you use the same stencil and you kind of move it around, you get lots of layering. You get some very interesting patterning. And I just keep going, adding some darks, adding lights, till I like what I see. So you can see some of that pink showing through. There's the blues, there's contrast. So now I'm going to collage my kite on. Now I could have simply cut a diamond shape and made a kite. But I'm showing you that if you don't think you can, look for children's coloring books or clip art to get those basic shapes to give you that confidence. So I'm auditioning several colors and I decide to go with the one that's deep violet. I'm adding some lines. I'm kind of debating between this floral kite. So I'm just adding some of the line work because that makes a difference. And again, I'm looking off of somebody else's to guide where these lines are. And I'm just adding the string to my kite with my Sakura glaze pen. Now I found the sentiment, always have high hopes. And I realized if I use the acronym, it's ah. So I added that. Ah, always have high hopes. And I thought that was just perfect. There's nothing that's going to happen while you're doing an art journal page that you can't fix, that you can't change. It's paint and paper. Enjoy the process and have high hopes that it will turn out, because it will in the end. So I'm cutting the ties for the kite. I don't know if there's a word for that. And I play with the sentiment. I end up cutting it all up to get a little more motion in the background. Oh, by the way, the stencil that I use for this background is called Gauze, and it's absolutely lovely for getting some texture and pattern in the background. I'm using my matte fluid medium to glue all the elements down. And from the kite, I use little bits of gel prints and collage papers that I had in my stash. I did end up printing out a new sentiment for this one. I didn't have any that were kite worthy. Using the shading acrylic technique to just add to the focal image to make it pop a little bit more. So are you doing the ICAD challenge? I hope you are, even if that means you're only doing one a week. Figure out a way of making it work for you. Have those stash builders. That really is key to being able to journal every day. Having a lot of things at the ready. And while you're watching me do the finishing details on this page, please go to Instagram and follow me at Creative Katie. You'll see some of the posts well ahead of when the videos come out. I finally got to the point where I can actually get a stash of videos ready to go. Also, check out my napkin journal playlist. So it seems that I have a bit of a color theme going on, blues and deep violet. So I figured, for the fourth one for this week, I'm going to grab something with similar coloring. I flipped through all my gel prints and I picked this. The prompt for this one was chamomile. And I thought of tea and I thought of the white flowers. I had in my tea stash when I grabbed the teacup, the gel print teacup that I had in my stash, I had these tea words, and I thought maybe I'd use them. Didn't like the words, but liked the white. So I decided to build my own sentiment, and I'm saying enjoy the simple things like a cup of tea at the end of a day. And I'm using my wooden blocks and stamping with white acrylic paint. And as you can see, if you doesn't get it quite in the right place or you don't like it, you have some time to get a baby wipe and clean it out. Now I stamp ahead of time on a piece of paper just with archival ink, just to get the spacing and the sizing to make sure that it's going to fit in the space that I'm going to put it. Was that clear? And I'm not looking for it to be perfectly straight. I have let go of that bit of perfectionism. Initially, that bothered me. Now I'm just embracing it. And I'm loving how the white here is really popping with that dark background, that gel printed background. The background I used, I believe it's screen view it's the square element. And those wavy elements, that was from a sink liner. And I love how it looks like the steam coming out of the teacup. So once I had the idea for doing tea, I went, I was looking for the colors in my gel prints from my session, and I was looking for something that fit my theme. Now, chamomile is a little white flower, and so I decided I'm going to add a design element to the teacup, and I grabbed this stencil, Ethereal, and this little flower. I thought, it's not quite a chamomile flower, but that's artistic license, right? And I love that pop of white on there. The patterning on that teacup is actually from a shelf liner that I use on my gel plate. But I love the patterning, how everything works together. Now I'm stenciling on this one. This is one of my own stencils that I've cut. And I'm just adding another bigger flower motif there. Some gel medium or matte medium fluid underneath, glue the teacup down. Now doing some shading and finishing of this index card. And yes, I realize it's not an index card, but it has all the same qualities. It's 5x7, so that's the same as some index cards you can buy, and it's a less than perfect substrate. Again, I encourage everyone, if you want, you can go buy some index cards or use what you have. I'm going to add a little bit more white contrast, so I'm edging this one in white, not black like the others. The black wouldn't show up with the black background. I'm using my white paint that's in my fine line bottle. And then I decide I need a little bit more definition to the cup, and I'm adding the stitching around the cup. And I kind of wish at this point that I had done stitching around the edges, just so everything worked together. But this works too. That's me evaluating and saying what I would do different. Then I decide to add the stitch work to the steam. I'm not sure I would have done that again. What do you think? I'm adding some work in here. It's making it a little more opaque, and it also is giving it a little bit of texture. Did you miss week one's video? It's not too late. Go and check it out. Here's what I created in week one. And upcoming are close-ups of week two index cards. Thanks so much for joining me. Happy creating!